Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andrew Siegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Bittner and Ash Paulson to discuss the recent news that Nintendo and Sony may be working together on a Mario movie. So let's get started. Alright guys, you just heard that, right? Nintendo and Sony may be working together on a Mario movie. So the reason this whole news piece came out is, there was a huge hack with Sony recently where all these emails came out, and one of them apparently involved someone, I believe his name is Avi Arad, who secured the rights to Mario from Nintendo directly. Apparently flew to Japan, met up with Miyamoto and presumably other Nintendo higher-ups, and somehow secured the rights to making a Mario movie, and it appears that he is now working with Sony Pictures to actually make this happen. So that is just so mind-blowing to me on so many levels. But what is your guys' gut reaction to hearing this?
It's kind of surreal in a way because, it's been how many years since the live-action Mario Brothers movie? There's been one other Mario movie which was animated in Japan, but that never came to the US. And then all we ever had otherwise was like the Super Show and Super Mario Adventures of Super Mario Brothers 3 and stuff like that. But that was always sort of like the same thing, and it's a very different kind of Mario than what we're used to now. So it's hard to get super excited about this because it is so early on in the deal and these type of things fall through at the time. But also just the sheer potential of it and the fact that it actually could happen. It's like, how the hell is this going to happen? Like, what's the story going to be? What are they going to do with it? I don't know. Like, they're like these little clips from this, they're saying about how they have so many ideas that they could fill like 3 to 4 movies right out of the gate. I'm like, how?
Yeah, there's only one plot to Mario games, right?
Exactly. Unless you adapt Thousand Year Door, I'm not sure you're not going to get a lot of Mario stuff out of there.
Well, I had heard that I had a dog and a cat move into the apartment next to me, and I thought that sounded weird at the time, but now I know why, because Sony's making a Mario movie. Or maybe making a Mario movie. But yeah, I mean, it's totally unexpected and weird and sounds wrong, but hey, if it can work out, then I'm game. I think the important part is it is animated. It's not another horrible live-action thing. It's actually animated, and it has potential to be really cool, but I think it's important to stress that this is only the first step in a long process. I mean, this in no way confirms that there's a Mario movie coming from Sony yet. It just means it is a possibility. Yeah,
that really should be stressed, because this isn't, super early. I mean, this email is from October of this year, just like, a few months ago. Yeah. It's super early in the process. It could break down as many other movies have before. So really, I mean, odds are that this won't end up happening. But I think it's fun to explore the possibility of it happening. And I have mixed feelings on this. But overall, I agree with you, Ash. Like, on the base level, like ignoring some of the weird facts here, I think this is actually really cool. I think Nintendo's needed to diversify a little bit more in the past and probably should have. And I think they may be realizing that too. And I think branching out in the movies isn't a bad idea at all. I mean, short of like Disney, very few companies have a stable of IPs as broad and wide-reaching as Nintendo does. So I absolutely think it makes sense to branch out into other mediums, so they can appeal to people who may not be into video games or maybe don't play video games anymore. Just reach a broader demographic. I mean, I think really, take a look at Disney, right? Look what they've done. They grew from a small studio into a massive empire. And I'm not saying Nintendo needs to do that, but some of what Disney has done has been genius with their characters. Entering all kinds of different forms of media. And I think Nintendo should do the same thing. So I'm actually really excited on that level to see what they can do with this. Now, the question is, how will this shape up? And one thing about this report that concerns me is the fact that Nintendo isn't the one really taking the lead here. Instead, it was, Avi Arad, who approached Nintendo, has apparently been trying to court them for some time, taking the lead. And that's what, I don't know, that to me just concerns me a little bit, that it's not Nintendo's initiative, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think you're right to be concerned, because I think the last time this happened was back around the time of the original Metroid Prime's release. There were rumors circulating that a Metroid movie directed by John Woo was going to happen. And then I think Nintendo kind of put the kibosh on that because they weren't really happy with the direction Woo was, taking the film in, or at least in its preliminary stages. But no, I mean, but I kind of agree with you. If Nintendo's not really the one that's starting this whole thing, and Avi Arad, or however you say his name, has to come in and check with them, about his direction a few months or a year from now, and they could very easily just shut the whole thing down if they're not really happy with how it's going. So, I mean, I really do think that there are a lot of obstacles to this movie actually happening, and I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't actually ever come to fruition.
Yeah, Avi Arad has a very interesting track record if you look over his IMDb, and I've heard of him before even this, because he handled a lot of the Marvel stuff, especially most significantly he was the producer on the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. So he has a lot of that going along, and he has an interesting resume. So it's, I can totally believe that he'd be able to manage something of this scale. Now, whether or not he has the appropriate hands for it, and whether he can handle something with that works for Nintendo, and Nintendo wouldn't be against it, I'm not positive. But the fact that they're the first person they thought of, and of course there's no confirmation about this whatsoever. They even have a rep saying that it's like he's not involved, is the fact that they decided they wanted to court Gennady Tartakovsky, who worked on, Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack. He did Hotel Transylvania, which I've heard pretty decent things about. And he's actually working on the new Popeye movie coming out. And he's basically an animation god. He is really, really good. He has some really great styles, and he understands the medium so well. And having Mario in his hands, I think, is something that could really work well if they were able to get him, and I could see that partnership working. However, even if they weren't able to get him and gave Nintendo a little bit more control, look at the Pikmin shorts that just came out.
Right.
And look how well, I mean, they're, of course they're really short, but they are really amusing. They have some real heart to them. So I don't know what they could really do as far as Mario, especially when they try to need to make it a 90-minute movie. But there have been steps along this path that could make it work.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, I downloaded those Pikmin shorts. I liked what I saw in a little preview video they put out. I'm like, I'll spend a few bucks to get those, and I really did like them. They were charming. Like, it captured that Nintendo magic in a different medium, and I love that. And if they can somehow translate that into a full movie, I'm totally on board. Like, I wanted to see Nintendo branch out for a while, as I said, and I think I'd be really excited to see this, so long as it's not a repeat of the Mario movie. And Nintendo has said before that they've been, I think even as recently as E3, I forget, it was some interview, it might have even been BuzzFeed, I believe, actually, who interviewed them, which is also where this news broke from. And they asked them last year if, they were considering doing any kind of movies, and they mentioned, it might have been Shigeru Miyamoto who mentioned that they get approached by people all the time asking to make movies, and they've thought about it, but they haven't sealed the deal. They didn't want to take that step quite then. So it might be time, and it's interesting that if this does go through, that Sony Pictures is the one making this.
Well, Sony's already trying to make movies based on their own property. I mean, we've already seen that teaser trailer of Ratchet and Clank, which we haven't seen anything of since then. We saw another teaser trailer of Sly. They've been trying to get Uncharted on the big screen for a while. There's always the rumors of Last of Us. Sony has been going down this path for a while, so I think including Mario in this staple probably makes a lot of sense, because they're the ones that have been going down this video game path up to this point. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how they'd all handle it, because I don't know about you guys, but I don't really think Sony Pictures when it comes to animated movies.
Yeah, no, I don't either. I don't know. The way I see this is, at the end of the day, like in most things, money talks, and money is king. So I'm not really that surprised that Sony wants to work with Mario, whatever division it is, because Mario equals money. It's one of the biggest, longest lasting, most storied franchises in video game history. Why wouldn't they want to work with it? And I don't think that just because they have the PlayStation division, they would turn their noses up at the opportunity to make a ton of money on a Super Mario Brothers CG animated movie.
I guess that really gets to the point of, how are they going to make Mario a movie? Like, how are you going to pull that off? Like, Nintendo, or Mario specifically, has been extremely light on story. Shigeru Miyamoto's been very vocal about that.
Yeah.
And Mario doesn't really talk. He says a few words here and there. But, in the games itself, he doesn't talk much. Although, in the other mediums he has appeared in, like cartoons and, of course, the movie, he has talked at length, just with a very different voice. So, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about what they could do here, like story-wise or medium-wise?
Well, if they don't use Charles Martinet, I think there'll be a riot if this goes forward.
I don't think they can, though. Like, unless they do make Mario mostly a silent hero, I don't think you can have Mario talk for an hour and a half picture.
I don't know. I
think
disagree.
it would get grating, or is that what your problem is? Do you think it would get grating?
Like, I love. Don't get me wrong. I love Mario's voice. Like, I think it works perfect within the context it's presented. And maybe it would work fine in the movie, but like, when you hear, like, you watch his interviews with Charles Martinet, like, voices Mario for pretty lengthy period of time. It's like after a minute or so, I'm like, all right, I'm good. I have my fill.
I don't know, maybe. I mean, I don't think it would get that grating over the course of a 90-minute film. He's not going to be talking the entire time, and we know that Charles Martinet is can do more than just Mario. He can actually have large speaking roles, because he had a pretty large one in Runner 2 or Bit Trip Runner 2, and he sounded great there. So we know he can do like actual speaking roles.
Oh yeah, it's not even a question of Charles Martinet himself. It's just that voice.
Right. I don't know. I mean, they might tone down the high pitched quality of Mario's voice in the games for a full length movie, I would imagine. But I don't know. I could see it working. I don't think it would be so strange to hear him talk for that long.
Perhaps. It's really difficult for me to say, but I mean, in my opinion, Mario is kind of the least interesting of the entire stable there. Like, I'd almost rather have a Luigi movie. Focus on Luigi and like having like his sort of pratfalls thing. It sort of works better for a cartoon in my mind. Mario is just sort of perfect, and it's not really interesting. So they have to really find something to base that around in order to make him like you need an arc, you need a 3-act structure when it comes to movies. You can't have a game where it's just level to level to level and all you have one single goal. You can have that goal, but you also need a structure to keep people invested. And it's a very different way. It's a very different way from games, and that's where a lot of these pitfalls come in when it comes to adapting games into movies. So that's the bigger issue in my mind, is like, how do you find a story that works for Mario, that works within a movie, but stays true to what people know and love about him at this point?
Well, and I mean, obviously, Derek, you mentioned the 3-act structure there. I mean, obviously, based on Mario, they can go with the 8-act structure, where Mario goes world to world, taking out a Koopaling and then Bowser.
Yeah, that's true. the 7 MacGuffins then take on Bowser. But no, I mean, if they can find a way to adapt something along the lines of like a Paper Mario or a Mario and Luigi, especially a Mario and Luigi in my mind, because you got both brothers in there and you got that interaction going on, I think they could really do something special with it, especially if they point out just the craziness of it all. And there is a way to make this work. Whether or not they go down that route, hard to say.
I mean, I don't know. When I think of my ideal Mario movie, I don't really even need a story. Just give me a 90-minute version of Bowser Jr.'s Smash Brothers trailer, and I'm pretty much going to be very happy, no matter what happens in the story, because that's such a cool trailer showing Mario fight Bowser Jr. in a pretty dramatic fashion. And, man, just make a 90-minute movie of him fighting various, Mario Universe enemies with that awesome-looking CG. I'm happy. I'd pay for a movie ticket to see that.
I need a bit more.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I'm being facetious. Obviously, I need a bit of a story. But what my point is that Mario succeeds on the strength of its iconic characters, not its unique, complicated storylines. So
that's entirely true. But it works in the medium he's in, because you're playing as him. In a movie, you're gonna need a little bit more than that.
Yeah, no. Of course, I'm gonna want like something of a story to tie it all together. But I mean, if it looks good and it's got him fighting all the various enemies that we've come to love over the years, that I think is going to be the most important element, is how well that translates,
right?
To the silver screen, more than any story they come up with.
Well,
even though they obviously need a story.
So that'll carry it for one movie, but
sure.
In the emails they did mention, I think potentially 3 or 4. Like they sounded so excited about this. So now that we know this is a possibility, I'm wondering, like, are there any other Nintendo IPs you would want to see in movie form? Because for me, like, Mario would be awesome and all. Like, it's my favorite game series. But if I had a choice of a Nintendo movie to be made, I would want Zelda. Did you remember the IGN April Fool's joke from years ago?
I do remember that.
Yeah, when I worked there, I'm like, that looks freaking awesome. Like, if they were able to capture the spirit of the movie or of the game in that way in movie form, it'd be game over. Like, especially if when the movie starts up and you hear those iconic notes of the Zelda theme. Oh, like orchestrated, it would be so good.
Yeah, Zelda is kind of the obvious one that they would go for, the high fantasy stuff, and
right.
I'm sure people will be looking. Look at how they were looking for the next big fantasy epic after Lord of the Rings came out. Mm-hmm. That was a prime opportunity to do something Zelda related. I don't know if fantasy is quite the draw anymore. Hobbit is still doing well, but not quite as strong as the original Lord of the Rings. For me, Metroid. Metroid seems to make the most sense. They can do a lot. They can do a lot with it. The character speaks. You have these plot lines. They're in depth. You have a backstory for Samus that you can build off of and do a lot with. It's Metroid for me.
So how would you do that exactly? Because she is by herself for most of the time. I mean, would it just be basically Castaway in space? Although I guess some of the more recent games did have some new characters introduced.
You can still have those characters for like the training sequence because this is an origin. You have her as a little girl, her thing getting attacked. Raised by the Chozo, and then all this. You mean the actual fighting the space pirates can only be the second half of the movie. The first half is just developing her character.
That'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, you could totally see an arc for Samus to go through for the first movie.
That's true.
Whether or not she has people around her or not. So, I mean, that's sort of whatever. I don't know, but of course Zelda's a good one. That's the thing with Mario's. There's like a whole Pikmin short. I mean, Pikmin could even make it for a pretty decent movie.
I'm actually in agreement with you, Derek. I think Metroid is the obvious choice over Zelda for a movie adaptation. I just feel like there are too many ways they could screw up Zelda in terms of casting, or if they go CG versus live action. It's hard to say. I think Metroid, I really like your idea of an arc for the first movie, but another possibility I want to throw out is Star Fox. I think Star Fox could make for a really fun kind of dogfighting space epic if it was done in CG and it looked good. So, I mean, it would never happen, of course, but I think a Star Fox movie could be really cool, actually. But I think Metroid, in terms of brand recognition and in terms of, being able to translate well to the silver screen, I think Metroid's probably my first choice, too.
Star Fox, that'd be interesting, but I think it'll be tricky just because the series has been so inconsistent.
Yeah.
With the characters, how they portrayed those characters, how the games even worked.
Right.
I don't know, but I guess in that sense, it might give them more freedom too to work within that. I've said a few times now, I think it'd be awesome if they made Star Fox a little bit more mature. I'm not talking like an M-rated game or anything.
Right.
But have them take it a little bit more seriously.
Well, they kind of already approached that with Star Fox Assault and Star Fox Command. I mean, one of the endings of Star Fox Command has Fox and Falco drinking in a bar because he's heartbroken over losing Crystal. I mean, it's stupid because these are all like space animals. But I mean, they actually already kind of went into serious continuity territory with the characters actually really being sad about things. Mm-hmm. So, I could see it happening. I mean, they do, because they do approach serious, despite the fact that they're space animals, they do approach serious topics of conversation in the actual games. So I can see that, I could see that working in the movies as well. Well, imagine an F-Zero movie done in the style of like Sin City or something super gritty, noir-esque.
Wow.
I cannot see that movie as noir at all. It's more like a Power Ranger show, the way they're all dressed up.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It is more kind of like a superhero type thing. Captain Falcon himself is so brooding and but yeah, I guess it is kind of more like a superhero.
Look at what is it, Black Shadow or whatever his name is like, and then you got Blood Falcon or whatever. I'm like, no, you can't take this seriously.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I guess it is more of like a comic booky type thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess my final question for you guys is, now that we know Nintendo might be more open to expanding further, I mean, Iwata's even talked before during the investor meetings about, doing more with their IPs, I believe, and this could be a sign of that. And I'm wondering, is there anything else you guys would want to see or could imagine Nintendo doing now that they might be opening up?
For me, it comes down to 3 words: Smash Brothers anime. That Palutena trailer for Smash Brothers made me want to see a full-length Smash Brothers anime so much, and if I could have my pick of another visual media for Nintendo to kind of test its IPs in, I would vote for a Smash Brothers anime. That's the kind of thing that I would subscribe to a service if it was exclusive to a certain service. Like that would be the coolest thing in my opinion.
That would be pretty awesome. Like they did a great job with that.
Yeah, actually, that just gave me another idea of another medium: Kid Icarus TV show.
I would watch that too.
That done in the style of the of Uprising. Oh my god, that'd be amazing. That'd be amazing. That'd be an amazing TV show.
Yeah.
And I say TV show because I want more than just 90 minutes of that. I want a whole series, and that seems like it would work better in smaller snippets.
Yeah, I think so too. That would make a ton of sense.
I would watch that every single day if that was on.
All right, do you guys have any final thoughts at all, or any final things you want to mention about any of this before we wrap it up here?
Just keep in mind once again that this is years away from even maybe happening. Like, this is not a guarantee at all. It is extremely recent. But if it all comes about, this could signal an interesting change for Nintendo, and I'm very curious to see exactly what they would come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same here. Like, I really, the more I think about it, the more curious I am as to what sort of story they could wrap a 90-minute Mario movie around.
That really is a question. Like, what can they do?
Yeah.
I really am just more intrigued to see what they end up doing, and I hope it doesn't end up terrible. So. All right, well, I think that wraps up for us here, so thanks, guys, for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, which you can find links to in the description below. There's a good way to keep up to date on everything we post, and of course, keep an eye on GameXplain.com for maybe more in Mario movies in 3 to 4 years, and other things gaming as well. All right, thanks, guys. Bye.